course, coming up, Sunday Night Football, Ravens-Bengals here in Baltimore. That means one of my absolute favorites is back in town, as he will be on the call with Cris Collinsworth and Baltimore's own Melissa Stark. He is the great Mike Tirico, and he's back with us now here on GCR. Mike, it's Glenn in Baltimore. It's great to chat with you again. Thank you for taking the time for us.
Yeah, Glenn, good to be with you. Hope all is well. Looking forward to some sunshine here. I know it hasn't been the greatest week weather-wise, but I think we've got a good forecast for the weekend.
Finally turned
cool.
around. Yep, no doubt. It was a rough one. Mike, we're in a weird place, right? Because I don't know how you guys approach this. The Ravens are pretty clearly a good football team, right? They've trailed for all of 14 seconds through their first 4 games. They've just somehow managed to lose 2 of those games in the process. And there's an argument that good teams don't blow multiple 3-possession leads. Like, when you look at the Ravens' big picture going into this, what do you see in them?
Oh, they're not far away, right? If you think about 2-2, where the league is, nobody's running away and hiding, at least from where I sit this year. So that's not too much of a problem, right? You're a game back from being as good as anyone in the AFC. So there's no, oh my gosh, we're 2 back, they're a quarter of the season, what's going to happen here? I think there's, well, just to take the losses for a second, you look at those losses, very uncharacteristic, although there is a little bit of a pattern in these one-score games of late and also the home games. So those are concerning things. But I think one game kind of turns that around. Win a close game, win a game at home, and you're off the schneid of that kind of stuff. That's why I think this is important. You don't want to start getting this hole any deeper in those regards. But when I look at the team, Glenn, the bigger thing to me, I think we've had a little bit of a flip. For years and years, you counted on the defense, you hoped the offense. That's turned the last few years, and now it's really turned here. We're a couple of years into this where, you want the offense on the field when it matters, not the defense, which we never used to think or say about the Ravens.
Mike, I've asked Ian and Kevin about this in recent weeks. You're calling Lamar Jackson playing football on Sunday night. And while I know he didn't have his most brilliant game last week, his first 3 were pretty stinking brilliant. And you just never know what you might see as a broadcaster and what he might do. Is there a pressure that comes with calling Lamar Jackson as a broadcaster? Is there boy, I better be on it because you just don't know what kind of magic we might see?
No, there's a fun to it for me. I don't think it's a pressure. I think it's the fun part of our job. You prepare all week, but the fun stuff is when you get there on Sunday night or Sunday day for Kevin and I. It's fun for me. We just had Patrick Mahomes, and not just Mahomes, and we saw what he did, down around the goal line, but also the Chiefs in general. I spent the whole week watching the red zone plays that they've run over the last couple of years inside the 5-yard line. And there are so many different things that you stay really focused on it. And son of a gun, wouldn't you know, they snapped it to their second-string tight end, who was in motion and went under center as Mahomes was pointing to the left. So that's just like you're paying attention even more. You're always paying attention to the ball, but you're hyper-focused on being with or a step ahead of the play and not too far behind the play. And, I talk to Ian all the time. We've been friends for almost 30 years, and he's one of my dearest friends. And we were just talking about this on Monday, just the joy of doing those games. And Ian and Kevin are 2 of the best of calling the game in that moment, the exact moment as it's happening, not waiting and then calling it back afterwards. So, I think there's always a hyper awareness, but there's also a fun to it. Here's where I put the category. Tiger Woods always brought you to the TV because he might hit a golf shot you've never seen before. And Lamar and Patrick have a little bit about them that is similar to that, even Josh Allen too. You may see a play that you haven't seen before, and that keeps you right on top of the wheel here as you're driving.
Mike Tirico is with us. Sunday Night Football, of course, on NBC, Ravens Bengals. It's so funny you bring that up, Mike, because when I brought it up with Ian, who I also adore, he compared it to Michael Jordan or doing NBA games over the years, like a Kobe or a LeBron, and I was like, wow, that is a great comparison. You've done a few Ravens Steelers games over the years, including the legendary "You Are the Voice of Wednesday Football" in the NFL.
Right, exactly right.
This thing now with the Ravens and the Bengals, clearly it's not Ravens Steelers. It can't be that, but. And I'm certainly not silly enough to think the Steelers are going to be buried for forever. But given the landscape now of this division and it being Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson, this feels like it's a pretty intense, budding rivalry between these two, franchises at this point.
Right. You almost feel like the game week 18 is going to mean something for someone, if not both, right? Because you just have that feeling about these two teams, whether it's the division, a wild card, home field, whatever it might be. You just feel like something's going to be on the line week 18 when these teams meet. And that is what you've figured out over the last couple of years. You're right with the quarterbacks. I think quarterbacks help make rivalries, and good defenses and good defensive play do as well. And I think you're on with both of these here. The one thing that kind of jumps out to me with this rivalry right now, or these teams as head-to-head combatants, the Ravens have that with almost everybody in the division. There's the legacy of the Steeler rivalry over the years. There is the generational
the
franchise move with Cleveland. And with this, as you said, hey, you Ravens swept them 2 years in a row, had won 5 in a row. And last year they didn't only sweep you, they destroyed you.
Mm-hmm.
They embarrassed you, right? And they put up performances that you never see the Ravens give up to the same team in the same season. So, yeah, all of a sudden, quarterbacks, score, game situation, we've got a rivalry, and that's great. So when you have 6 division games and all 6 have a little edge to them, that means you've been a really good team for a really long time, as we know the Ravens have been. So it's good. It's fun.
What do you make? We talked about the Ravens being a little uneven to start the season. What do you make of the Bengals and their kind of uneven start?
Yeah.
I know a lot of people bring up the Super Bowl hangover thing, and who knows how you define that, but are they fine now because they've won back-to-back games, or are they still maybe a little bit sluggish and it's still a little bit weird for them as they kind of adjust to life with the bullseye on their back?
Yeah, good question. I don't think anybody's fine right now in the NFL, except maybe for Philadelphia. I've seen warts and holes and issues for every team that we've watched so far play, right? And with the Bengals, what did they need to fix? They needed to fix their offensive line. So they got 4 guys, essentially, to rework their offensive line, 1 through the draft, 3 through other NFL means. And I think they're better, but they didn't look it in game 1 for sure against the Steelers. But games 3 and 4, they've been a lot better in protecting Joe Burrow. So that's issue 1. Now, issue 2 is everybody in the league seems to be playing these coverages that allow you short stuff but not deep stuff. And that means you take away stud receivers. So where are we with finding ways to get the ball to Jamar Chase? And I think they're going to evolve and move him around as time goes on. So that's a long way and a detailed way of saying the first quarter of the season now, more than ever before, has become about discovery. Self-discovery, who you are, what you do well, and discovery for what other teams do in the league and what they're going to look like. So I think we'll see better ball from the Bengals if they stay healthy through October and November.
Another couple minutes here with Mike Tirico as he gets ready for Sunday Night Football on NBC, Ravens-Bengals. Mike, the storyline in Baltimore throughout the week has, of course, been John Harbaugh's decision to go for it on 4th down. I don't know how you guys approach this with a broadcast. Like, do you wait for that decision to pop up to start talking about it? Do you lead in saying, hey, I mean, this is really a major storyline with how aggressive this team has chosen to be in both of their losses this season. There were some critical 4th down calls that were made that did not go their way, that turned the tide in a game. And, obviously there was the scene with Marcus Peters at the end of last week's game. Like, how much do you lean into that as you guys prepare for this broadcast?
I think it becomes situational. It's when it comes up, or then you bring it up at some point after you've established who's playing. For the Ravens fans, these are big details and discussed and dissected all week. If you're a Lions fan or a Titans fan or a Rams fan who's tuning in,
right,
you may have caught a highlight of it, but you don't know the scrutiny that comes with it. So you kind of establish the game first, get there second. Always have a plan, but sometimes you adjust the plan for what happens at the moment if it calls for it. I think the Ravens have been very analytically based earlier than other NFL teams. I think they've been an aggressive 4th down team. They've dabbled in it. When you go for it on 4th down and it works, you never reference back to it, right? When you go for it and it doesn't work, it becomes twice as impactful. I'd say overall, they're in a stretch right now where a couple haven't worked against them. I think more than the decision to go, It's the play call, right? And then the decision within the play call. Lamar throwing a pick there really changes the percentages. And that's the one thing. We were in the booth Sunday night, and Cris and I right away were getting in touch with the Pro Football Focus and our other research guys and go, okay, I don't have the numbers in front of me at the moment, but what were the win percentages to kick a field goal? What were the win percentages to go for it on 4th and 1 and leave them at the 1-yard line? But then you have the win percentages if you go for it on 4th and 1 and then they end up at the 20-yard line. And there's a variance from 4th and 1, leave them at the 1, 4th and 1, leave them at the 20. So you had all that. To me, the Marcus Peters stuff, that's just, you go back and watch the game film, the coach's film of that, and you just see multiple players with hands on head, like, what are we doing? What'd you do? We're trying to let them score, carry them in the end zone, whatever it is. That's just the right decision was made by the coaching staff. It was just not executed. So there are cascading issues here. Do I think it's a problem? No. Harbs has done this for 14 years now.
Sure.
In his 15th. He's been incredibly successful relative to most of the other guys out there. These are just streaks that you run into that after you've run into so many good streaks, you're going to run into something to balance it out.
You know what? I completely agree with that, Mike. It's as big of a deal as it proves to be moving forward, right? Like right now,
right.
I'm utterly in agreement with you that I can be. We also know Marcus Peters has always been an emotional player, and if anything, he's been, a choir boy in Baltimore since he arrived. Like he's been wonderful since his arrival. We know he's an emotional guy, and that's okay. It's football. You're allowed to have emotions. Hey,
you should be mad if the decision was we're going to let them score, give ourselves a chance,
and nobody cared.
And you missed that communication, go watch after the first down where they're supposed to let them score, and then Josh Allen takes it, gets the first down. Go watch the even a TV copy of that. Go watch the top of the screen as Marcus Peters is out there with Stephon Diggs. You can just see him boiling and how upset he is. I wouldn't want to see it blow up like that on a sideline necessarily, but I want to see that it matters so much that a potentially game-losing decision, has you very upset. That means you're invested and you care. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I agree.
This is silly.
And as long as there's no more of it, and you hope that as men they got together this week, everybody's good, and you move forward. I'm with you. I'm not concerned.
Yeah.
Mike.
Hey, you know what?
Yeah.
That guy's not going to make the mistake again.
Right. No doubt.
And
by the way, he nearly got that's the crazy part. When you go back and look at the film, he damn near got the fumble. He damn near got it.
Yeah.
He got the ball dislodged. Singletary just managed to hold on to it. Before I let you go, we have to ask. We saw the return of the slide this past Sunday night. Can we assume that there will be? It's the most electric moment in all of sports television. Can we assume
there's not one bit of significance to that. Actually, so here's the deal, and I'll be as brutally honest as I can. This internet sensation, which is such a waste of time, but here's the deal. I prefer opening the broadcast on a two-shot because it gives Cris 30 more seconds to talk about the game.
Okay.
I think you're spend 3.5 hours with us. I don't think you need to spend 30 seconds in an earlier time. No, in all seriousness, in an earlier time, I thought the 30 seconds to set up the matchup was significant. In 2022, everybody pretty much knows the story of the teams on a national level.
Sure.
So I don't think you need that. So my deal was you're going to spend 3.5 hours with the two of us. Let's open up the game as a team, as a partnership. And I'd rather Cris have 30 seconds to talk more about the game than telling you that this team won last week and lost the week before. The way the NFL is covered, I think that has evolved. So that's the way we've approached it. That's the way our producer was all in on that. But like when there's something serious like the hurricane or there's some big story that requires addressing at the top, then we're going to do it that way.
Okay.
I mean, the slide was great. We can leave it where it was. If Cris has to do it for a game or two or whatever because it's editorial, that's great. But for the internet meme that doesn't really change anybody's life, I'm not going to bother with that.
You know what? I greatly appreciate that explanation as a broadcaster,
No
Mike.
problem.
I truly, it's really well thought.
There's purpose to it.
Yep.
There's purpose to it. The purpose to it is the best analyst in the business who's won 17 Emmys. I want to give him a little more time at the beginning of the show so he doesn't have two sentences on each team.
Is it difficult at all? And I know I said I was going to. I promise this is it. Is it difficult at all dealing with the fact that like the world? And we deal with this in everything. When I do play-by-play now on the talk show, this is heck, the Tonight Show is driven by social and the internet and things like that. Is it tough to know that like there are people that clamor over this dumb thing that is meaningless in the course of broadcast?
No, it's fun. It's cool. It was neat. It's great that people had fun with it.
Yeah.
Let it stay where it was. Our goal is not to do the same show that Al and Chris and Fred Godelli was the producer and Michelle Tafoya did. They did an amazing show for a dozen years. That was the gold standard in TV. And most of the same principles are there. But if you fail in life when you try to be somebody else. So we're trying to do this as the similar bones to the show, right? But with our version of it. And one of the things for me was, let's open the game on a 2-shot. We're going to talk for 3.5 hours together. So let's welcome the audience together and get a little more out of you. So I think the social media thing has been incredibly fascinating, and it's good that people feel engaged. And anytime it's things that are, I don't know, connective and magnetic, like a slide or things like that, that's fun. When it's things that are off base, it's kind of silly, but you just dismiss it.
Right.
The slide was a great gig. It was cool. It was funny. Does it change the value of the broadcast? Not for a second. Does it change the information the audience gets? Not for a second. So I'm going to make a decision based on what's the best professional thing to do, not that a meme is going to go on the internet. Because at the end of the day, that meme or that whatever you want to put of the Collinsworth Slide there doesn't change the job we do, the information we get out to the people. So it doesn't matter. I've spent more time talking about it.
I know. But by the way,
than I ever would have imagined.
I just feel like I took a Mike Tirico masterclass. I feel like I might owe you money for that. I feel I just got a broadcast. I'm telling you, I feel like if we went to Syracuse, that would be incredible knowledge from like I owe you for that. That is awesome, Mike Tirico.
By the way, Kirk doesn't slide in with Al on the Amazon games, right?
Right.
They open the game
right.
in the shot without the crowd behind them,
right?
With the monitor behind them. When we did Notre Dame games, we'd come on from the booth about 14 minutes before kickoff. I did a 30-second open to that because it was the start of the broadcast. We weren't bringing in the analysts, and we were going back down to the field. So it all depends on what works for the format, not what works for let's get clicks. I mean, enough of our world is set up for let's get clicks and traction, and that in my opinion, in some ways we've lost what we do, and that's service the viewer. So
awesome.
Hopefully the services the viewer the best by getting 15, 18 more seconds of Chris setting up the game as opposed to just me setting up the game. And you know what? That's all good.
I'm with it. I'm with it. We're there to watch the game. By the way, I got to tell you, there is not a week in my life that goes by. You've had so many legendary calls, and I know this one. I think I've told you this before. There's not a week in my life that goes by that I don't think about Will Hill will score.
Will Hill?
Will Hill will score is one of the most understated, great calls I've ever heard him. It was so perfect in the moment. It was a meaning. It wasn't meaningless. It wasn't a significant Monday night game in New Orleans, but damn,
no.
It was such a perfect call of a Will Hill pick six. I don't know why I think about it constantly, Mike Tirico. I think about it all the time. It was brilliant.
Well, I would suggest you go to the library and get a few hobbies. You got to expand that. We think here, Glenn, a little bit. It was a fun game and a fun night for sure. We've had, and that's the like you said it before. The joy of this is to be right on the wheel, like you're driving in a NASCAR race, ready for that next moment. You got to react.
Yep.
And Ian and I talk about that all the time. It's the fun of doing games. And candidly, I miss it not doing as many games as I used to. I think you just get better by reps. I really do. And I think when you do 50 or 60 games, you're a better announcer than when you do 10 or 15. So I love it. I enjoy it. And there's no better part of the week for me than the 3.5-hour open book oral exam that we take in front of America.
That's awesome.
How did we study the Ravens and the Bengals for the week, and do we have all the answers? It's a load of fun. I love it, and can't wait to do it again.
Far too kind with your time. Sunday Night Football on NBC, Ravens, Bengals. Mike Tirico, truly appreciate you taking the time for us this morning, sir. Thank you.
Same here. Great to connect, and we look forward to a good weekend in Baltimore. Stay well.